Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
I was sitting out in front of my girlfriend's house, Phyllis Perry, who later became Phyllis Bolin, and we were sitting up in my dad's car in front of her house. Her younger sister came running out and said, "Pearl Harbor's been bombed."
I was on my way to southern Indiana to visit my present wife, and I was driving a 1940 Chevy, and I heard Franklin D. Roosevelt come on the car radio announcing that Pearl Harbor had just been bombed and a state of war exists between the United States of America and the Empire of Japan.
We're having a rehearsal for a Christmas effort at the church, and I came back from that rehearsal effort, went home and turned the radio on, and that's when I got the first word on the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor was the battle cry. For Dale Bolin, John Craig, and Jim Hansen, that cry was answered with service in the 70th Infantry Division. They were but three of more than 16,000 soldiers who went through the ranks of the 70th Infantry Division during World War II. The 70th began its history in the United States Army in June 1943 when it was formed at Camp Adair, Oregon. For the soldiers who trained there, rain, hot weather, and poison oak were constant companions.
First time, I guess, in Oregon, wet, it was spring, but, the people were good.
Following a year of training at Camp Adair, the division was moved from Adair to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. They arrived in July 1944 and prepared for overseas movement, leaving for the ETO in November 1944. The three infantry regiments of the division arrived in Marseille, France in early December 1944. They were immediately organized into Task Force Heron, named for its commanding officer. The task force was immediately assigned to the 7th Army.
We were all thinking the same thing, the uncertainty of what we're going to be facing. We're going to be facing death. We knew we weren't as trained as we'd like to have been.
The soldiers were assigned to the front on December 28, 1944. They found themselves facing the Germans close to the Rhine River near Bischweiler, France. It was the coldest winter on record, which made digging foxholes and staying warm a challenge.
We didn't freeze to death. The warmest we got was when it came our turn to sleep. There were always enough guys, 2, 3, 4 guys in a foxhole area, and so that at least one would be on guard all the time. So that meant you could get some sleep, and when you slept, well, you just pulled the blankets over your head. Every GI carried 2 blankets, and you matched up with another guy, so you had 4 blankets. You had a shelter half to put on the ground, put the blankets on, and with those 4 blankets and another body right there, it was comfortable enough to sleep. That was not a problem.
In the late hours of December 31st, 1944, German troops launched Operation Nordwind. For many in the 70th, it was their first introduction to combat.
I heard some tanks coming up in the little town of Barenthal, and we were dug in on this hill overlooking Barenthal. We had no anti-tank weapons at all, and I had one squad out on a little island. They said they only lost one man on that island. He got hit with a 20-millimeter airburst. But anyhow, about 2 hours later, we got the phone call back. Everybody take cover. It's going to be on the way in just a few minutes. And it was just like tons of freight trains going over your head. And boy, everything started going off at the same time. The town lit up and the tiled roofs went all over the place. And when all the dust settled after about who knows how long, we heard one tank crank up, and and that was it. So apparently we warded off a tank attack.
Troops of the 70th took on German forces and defeated them at Philipsburg and Vingen-sur-Moder. The victory at Vingen earned an award for the 2nd Battalion of the 274th Infantry Regiment, the Presidential Unit Citation. These and many other battles halted the German advance. By mid-January, the German drive was spent. Task Force Herren troops, along with other U.S. units, made a strategic withdrawal to straighten out the line. 70th troops found themselves in the area to the south of Saarbrücken, Germany. Following this withdrawal, the rest of the division troops arrived on January 18, 1945. With the division now fighting as a whole, the 70th commenced offensive operations on February 6th, with raids near Oeding, France. The drive for Germany began. On February 17th, the division attacked towards the French city of Forbach and the high ground near Spicher in France. The ultimate goal was Saarbrücken, Germany. The city of Forbach was liberated as well as numerous other French villages. Near Stiring-Vendel, 70th troops freed over 1,000 Allied POWs. On March 19, 1945, 70th troops made a night crossing of the Saar River and captured Saarbrücken. Soon after, a link-up was made with Patton's Third Army. After this link-up, the division went into reserves. It performed what amounted to occupation duty until the guns went silent on May 7, 1945. The war was over.
We were in Biebrich, Germany, and we heard it on the AFN radio first, and so we walked on outside, and all of a sudden the regimental band came down the street and playing our usual martial music, and it was of course in celebration of VE Day.
In October 1945, the division returned home. It was then deactivated. In a war to defeat Nazism, the division suffered 3,612 killed, wounded, and missing in 86 days of combat.